All right, let's do some more little creatures. One thing that I find really helpful is to like study anatomy in 2 stages. I figured this out when I was drawing cats, so I always think about this for cats. So the first stage is studying the bone structure. So for example, cats have this like shoulder blade like this that then has a bone that kind of juts back like this, and then they've got their elbow up here, and they've got 2 little arm bones that then go down into like the bones of the wrist and paw. So this is kind of stage 1, where I'd study the actual like anatomy of it, and you can study how the muscles wrap around it. But then stage 2 is studying the form, which is, the simplistic version of what we see on the outside. So for example, this is all going on the inside, and I can use it to inform the outside, which, the outside of a cat's arm, we're really going to see a tube shape going down from this shoulder, and then it kind of condenses until this little wrist area and turns over into a paw like this. Thinking about it as this kind of tube shape that's wider at the top and narrower at the bottom, turning into this other tube shape. Essentially trying to combine the knowledge of the bone with just this really, really simple outside form. Putting those together, it's like the combination of that then leads to an understanding that I can remember in my head. So why don't we actually do something where we take some reptile anatomy and some cat anatomy and combine them together. Something that I like to do with creatures is create these like kind of wire form anatomy structures. So like for a house cat, I like to just use like lines like this to kind of memorize the form, like a wire structure that we see through. Lizards are, at least the ones that I've been drawing recently, are a lot more flat on the ground like this. So maybe we can take lizard anatomy and then put it on this kind of like cat-like bone structure that's like sitting up very like regal and proud, and create royal looking dragon. Maybe it's got horns that are kind of like in the shape of a crown somehow. And it's got maybe a crown that then turns into some sort of mane. When I'm thinking of cats and royalty, I feel like a lion. I guess the Lion King is why that makes me feel that way. Word association. So yeah, let's make another little lizard creature. Maybe like a wise looking face. And then let's figure out how to create a crown of spikes coming along the back here. Kind of wrap around. I'm thinking we could do something like this. So if this is the eye bridge here, maybe the spikes kind of start there and wrap all the way around like a crown. I think that could be a cool design. For dragons specifically, I've noticed that I really like to take the frail, little spindly legs and big eyes. Like my dragons look very human-sized oftentimes. And those are just the elements that I'm drawn to about dragons. And I think that similarly with like anything, any creature that we draw, there's going to be elements that like we in particular are drawn to, things about them that stand out to us, that draw us to it. We slowly end up creating our own style over time. It's like we pull little bits and pieces, not just from the real world, but also from artists that we like. And we put them all together, and like that ends up kind of creating our style over time.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people feel that pressure to have a style right away or to get there a little bit too quickly. And as a result, they might give up learning some of the technical skill.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think that I was very much in that place too in the past. And I think that being able to let go of some of that was really valuable for me to just like let that go to the back burner almost and focus on other things. And it was when I was focusing on other things that I almost did accumulate that style. If that makes sense. All right, figuring out what sort of royal pose we can do. Give it a nice long neck and that cat sitting structure. Get that crown shape wrapping around. I like to never be too comfortable with the materials that I'm using. Like I want to be comfortable with them, but whenever I'm getting a little too comfortable, I like to like mix it up and add something new into the like art making process, because I find that I discover new things about how I like to draw and what I like to draw when I try new materials. I've been doing traditional art for so long that, I realized that I have a lot of gaps that I could fill in with my traditional art. which is part of the reason that I'm really looking forward to going to Watts, because I can learn like charcoal and some materials that I have just like no experience with. Let me just try one more little idea with this royal idea, and then I definitely want to try to incorporate some chameleon eyes into a design because I got a request for that. Just wanted to try one more kind of head shape, kind of a more chaotic version of the other head of spikes, kind of going off in every direction like this. All right, well, let's combine some more reptile characteristics together. Some sort of really, really elongated snake-like body. Maybe trying to create something kind of creepy, like a creepy dragon. Chameleons have like bizarre eyes, can kind of look in any direction. Like the eye can go on its own. It can like gaze up or gaze down like this. Can easily become pretty creepy. So yeah, let's try to make like a creepy dragon.
Thinking like an anglerfish as well.
Ooh, anglerfish. That's interesting. I know they have like the big dangling thing that hangs over. Yeah, maybe this dragon like lures its prey that way. And like lots of teeth. Let's create like a really weird looking flat head. There's one type of lizard that has this like bump at its nose and then its mouth goes down. So maybe we do something like that with the nostrils kind of up like that. And let's just cover this mouth in horrible teeth. I'm thinking that this would be so creepy because the mouth would just like be cavernous. Lots of little tiny teeth. You know, dragons are so interesting because they hoard treasure. I wonder if this one lures people in by having on a big hook like this something that looks like gold coins and lure people into into their death. All right, let's get an interesting, really long neck in there that kind of like gets this like cobra flare at the top. And a really long body. This will be like the front area of the body. And then this kind of comes down with a little bit of a crease there. This can be kind of the back end of the body. Get a long tail. Maybe the tail has another type of lure. Let's see, what can we put at the end? Maybe it does have a rattle as well. It makes the sound of gold coins clattering around. Let's give this one really, really creepy, spindly arms. I feel like there's always like a big hole in my life where when I realized that like unicorns and dragons and fantasy creatures didn't exist. Do you like dragons?
Did you have any suggestions on what you should add to the dragon?
You should have like some wings that go like this.
Wings that go like that? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's make wings that go like that. All right. Let's stretch out some big bat wing components. Big wings. Maybe the wings on this dragon are transparent and see-through, and we can see some of these veins in the wings. Make it real creepy. This is what I love about conventions. I love that the kids come and they're so excited. It means so much to me to like have a book out in the world because when I was a kid, art books were like one of the things that like made me want to do this for a career.
Yeah, and then having that influence on other people as well.
Yeah, exactly. Got these really long feet. One thing I like to do when I'm drawing is create overlaps. Like I like to like think about how I can like overlap the tail with the foot, things like that, because it brings a lot more dimension and realism into the sketches to just have little areas of overlap. Another thing I'm always trying to think about with, especially something like a reptile, is like folds and creases where joints are meeting. We can use those to show the form. So like even if we aren't doing like actual form wrapping, where the joints change over, the direction of these lines here, they're actually showing the way that the form is turning. So I'm always trying to pay attention to how I can use those lines to show like the form changing. Get that back foot in, get some of these, get a little bit of shading in there. I teach mainly just on my Instagram story. I break down the process of painting something. And lately I've been focusing on storytelling. We've been thinking about like how to break down the storytelling process and come up with like new creative ideas. Something that I dealt with a lot when I was younger was I did not understand how the artists that I love were coming up with the stories in their art. It felt so complicated, and it felt like they just had some trait that they'd gotten that had missed me. It was actually just a skill set that they had built up over a long period of time, and it was one that, you know, that was a big turning point for me, realizing that that was something that I could practice and learn too.
Another thing is it's never too late to start too. I hear people all the time saying, oh, I'm 28 or I'm in my 30s or 40s and I missed out and I can't learn how to draw now. Anyone that might be watching this, it's never too late for anyone to.
Absolutely not. When I was, a toddler and my mom was in community college for graphic design, she was around 40 years old. She actually had me pretty late in life and decided that she wanted to learn how to do graphic design and become a graphic designer. It showed me, like, at a very early age that, like, it really is never too late to do what you want to do.
If you enjoyed watching Devin sketch these dragons and you want to learn how to draw your own fantasy creatures, check out Proko.com. We've got a huge selection of courses to help you improve as an artist, including courses on creature design. Each one is jam-packed with useful information and taught by professional artists who have worked in the field. That's at Proko.com/store.
All right, let's do another one. All right, let me see. What could I combine? Maybe like something that looks almost like toad-like, hard-shelled. So like round toad shape, but like with like kind of like armored body and like really cute, stupid-looking wings. I think would be perfect. Let's do it. Maybe like looking up at us or looking down at us like this. Give it a big ol' throat that just kind of like goes right into a body. I love designing creatures. Like, I just find it so fun. All right, so here, let's start with this really funny looking like body shape. And then how about like integrating, there's these creatures that I'm studying recently. My friend actually recommended them. They're called crocodile skinks. They have this really interesting like armored body where the scales of them that are like super sharp, they like stick out over top of one another like this. I think it would be funny to take like this little guy and give him like armor like that, make him more difficult to eat because he looks a little bit easy to eat right now. And I think he's concerned about that from the way he's looking at us. What if he was a false armored creature? So he just has like patterns on him that look from a distance like he would be armored. Most of my dragons, I treat them kind of like animals, like they're like stray cats wandering around. But I think it would be funny if there are some that can talk, like that if like the intelligence is like a really big range. It would be especially funny if the ones that could talk are not the ones who look like they could talk. Maybe like every part of this guy is gooey, but just like designed to look like maybe it could be dangerous. So it looks like it has spikes, but they're actually just like little gooey flaps that are coming off of its wings. Kind of like an axolotl. Really tiny little gooey hands, big gooey kind of frog-like feet. How are you doing? Yeah, feel free to look through. I'm drawing dragons right now. Do you have any ideas for what kind of dragon I should draw next?
How about a lollipop dragon?
A lollipop dragon? That's a great idea. How do we make a lollipop dragon?
I'm thinking like a really long neck, like that's where the stick would go, and then the head is like a bold.
A big round head? That's awesome. Let's do it. Let's make a lollipop dragon. Big round head. Maybe it's got a big eye, little nose, and then a really long skinny neck like this. The biggest thing for me was just that my parents supported me. They knew that I was doing something that I loved and that they wanted me to pursue it. And, even if they didn't always understand it completely, they just, had that support from me, and that made the biggest difference.
I struggled in school too, and pretty much anyone can become a professional artist. It's just about treating it like a job, treating it like something you want to take seriously,
And its tail is gonna be lollipop shaped too. All right, here's the lollipop dragon. Oh my God, that was amazing. For you. Do you want to make a dragon suggestion for the final dragon?
You want to make a Proko dragon somehow?
A Proko dragon?
Are you aware of the kangaroo meme?
No, I'm not.
The kangaroo meme is, so Stan did a live stream where he did a really bad drawing of kangaroo.
Now, I don't really like that.
I don't know what I expected, and it wasn't that. All right, let's do it. Let me figure out the shapes real quick. So I know let's see, I think kangaroos have, oh my God, do I even know what a kangaroo looks like? I think they're more muscular and like they have really big tails, right? Yeah. Yes, in the pouch. So they have like little bellies like that, maybe. I don't know what a kangaroo looks like. I don't think I've drawn one before. We can make a dragon out of something like this. And then everyone in the comments can, also make fun of how bad a kangaroo is.
Yeah.
All right, that is my memory of a kangaroo. And wait, we got to get the little, here, there's a little baby in a pouch. That's a kangaroo. All right, let's make a dragon that's that shape now. Really big head kangaroo. All right. I'll make the face end at a point more. All right, let's do it. Maybe it's looking that way. So I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking like this is the back plane of the face. This plane's kind of going this way. Give it a nice neck. And then we need to get that bottom heavy body in. Leg kind of like that. And of course, if we're doing a kangaroo, we need a baby in there. And if it's a Proko dragon, it probably needs to be drawing.
I'm gonna do a charcoal drawing.
That sounds great. I'm so blown away by charcoal. Like I got Nathan Fowkes' charcoal portraits book. That was what like inspired me to go to Watts and want to learn how to use charcoal. That always like blows me away when people just have that level of like understanding of their material and their craft. Give it one of those eyes like that. It's unhappy with how its drawing is coming out. I just remember kangaroos being really muscular.
You want the drawing to be the kangaroo?
Yes, let's do it. Perfect. A true Proko dragon. And then instead of ears, it can have some spikes. I made this book with 3D Total, which you can get pretty much anywhere books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Target, online, Amazon. 3D Total website's like the best place to get it because more of the money goes to them. But yeah, I made this book. I'm pretty proud of it. It takes you all the way from like my really early art, back from like middle school, all the way through my my art journey of learning how to draw and paint, and picking up skills over time. And I do some tutorials in the book, which my favorite part about the 3D Total books is they leave a lot of space for talking about technique and for process breakdowns. Like I did some pretty detailed tutorials about like painting water and like how I break down my illustrations into, easier to complete components, things like that. But yeah, anyway, you can also follow me on Instagram or Twitter if you want. I'm at Devin Kurtz everywhere. And yeah, I'd love to see you guys around online.